Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind became Israel's best-selling book and was subsequently translated into 23 languages, becoming an inspiration to readers around the world. Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind became Israel's best-selling book, and has since been translated into 23 languages, becoming an inspiration to readers around the globe, and has been recommended by U.S. President Barack Obama and Facebook founder Michael R. Zuckerberg. Spanning history, archaeology, evolutionary biology, politics, religion, economics, science, and psychology, the book addresses cutting-edge research with a certain depth and breadth. The author, Israeli historian Yuval Noah Harari, attempts to address human myths from a macro perspective. Physically, man and animals are strikingly similar, says the war-born writer, who recognizes man as a species endowed with the power of God, but irresponsible, insatiable, and without even knowing what it wants. Harari, who was born in Israel in 1976, describes Israel as a land of conflict and narrow-mindedness. And naturally, Israelis are polarized. You either become narrow-minded and believe that the world is black and white, or you go to the opposite end of the spectrum and transcend reality. Harari chooses the latter, and hopes to bring a sense of humor to a more tolerant view of what it means to be human. Since childhood, Harari has been asking people around her what is really going on in the world and what is the purpose and meaning of life. Harari asked his parents, teachers, and other adults, but he was shocked that none of them seemed to have a true understanding of what life was all about. What surprised me even more was that they didn't seem to care about life, Harari said. They're very worried about money, they're very worried about their careers, they're very worried about their mortgages, they're very worried about politics, but they don't have a clue what life is, Harari said. Harari cites the example of people who follow the behaviors they practice for most of their lives without ever asking why. Why do we believe in God, individualism, and human rights? How did we evolve into nation-state life? Why has capitalism become the dominant economic system of the entire world? Why do all the people of the world believe in the same money system, despite their different opinions on religion and politics? Since then, Harari has turned to the question of what shapes human life today. After completing a doctorate in history at Oxford University, Harari accumulated considerable knowledge of history and research methods, and began to study human problems from a macro perspective. In 2012, Harari published the Hebrew edition of Sapiens, From Animals into Gods, A Brief History of Humankind. A Brief History of Humankind, which tells the story of what is behind the human domination of the world. Moving away from the traditional historical discourse of seeing in the smallest of details, A Brief History of Humankind takes a broader view of the history of human development to answer an important question: how did human beings emerge from the world's species and succeed in ruling the planet? Harari argues that it is not so much the physical or mental superiority of humans over other species that makes them kings over all the world's species, but rather their ability to work together in a flexible manner. Harari explains that in the natural world, bees and ants are representatives of cooperative groups, each with a clear division of labor, but their division of labor within the group is determined at birth, and they don't have the flexibility to change their functions in response to changes in their environments. The achievements of mankind in history, whether it was building the pyramids or going to the moon, were not based on the ability of individuals. Why is it that of all the animals, humans are the only ones who have been able to achieve this kind of cooperation? Like humans, wolves and chimpanzees are mammals that can form flexible cooperative groups, so why is it that humans, not orangutans or wolves, rule the world? According to Harari, the entire human community of more than 6 billion people around the world can work together on the basis of shared imagination and belief in false stories. Humans are able to work flexibly with countless strangers because, of all the animals on this planet, we are the only ones who can create and believe in fictional stories. As long as everyone believes the same story, everyone obeys and enforces the same rules, the same standards, the same values. Other animals limit their communication to describing real things. For example, a chimpanzee might say, "Look, there's a lion. Run." Human language, however, is not only used to describe objective reality, but also to create new, imagined realities. A human can say, "Look, there is a God on the clouds. If you don't do what you are told, when you die, God will punish you with hell." According to Harari, concepts such as the rule of law, beliefs, money, corporations, and even nations and peoples are not objectively existent entities, but are merely imagined and created by human beings, and have become the cornerstones of human society. Money is the best of the human imagination. Money is the most successful story in the history of mankind. Because it is the only story that everybody believes in. Not everyone believes in God, not everyone seeks human rights, not everyone is patriotic, but everyone believes in money, in cash. As early as 2 million years ago, the human species already appeared, and until about 10,000 years ago, there were still different human species in the world. Although Homo sapiens appeared in East Africa as early as 150,000 years ago, it was not until about 70,000 years ago that it began to migrate to other regions, resulting in the extinction of other human species. It was around 70,000 to 30,000 years ago that Homo sapiens developed a new way of thinking and communicating, which is precisely the so-called cognitive revolution. What were the reasons for the cognitive revolution? The most widely believed theory is that some accidental genetic mutation altered the internal connections in the brain of Homo sapiens, allowing them to think and communicate in a completely new language like never before. The mutation allowed us to conquer the world. Virtually every animal has a language. Even insects like bees or ants have extremely sophisticated and complex ways of communicating to tell each other where their food is. Many animals, including all apes and monkeys, use a vocal language. Green monkeys, for example, have different ways of calling out to convey different messages. Zoologists have determined, for example, that a particular call of the green monkey means "look out. There's an eagle." And with a little bit of tweaking, it can become "watch out. There's a lion." When the researchers played the first call to a group of green monkeys, the monkeys immediately stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky in fear. When the same group of monkeys heard the second call warning of a lion, they immediately rushed to the trees, even whales and elephants. Parrots can speak all the sounds that humans can, and they can imitate cell phone rings, slamming doors, and the whine of a police siren. What is so special about human language? The most common theory is that human language is the most flexible. Although we can only make a limited number of sounds, they can be combined to produce an infinite number of sentences, each with a different meaning. As a result, we are able to absorb, store and communicate an amazing amount of information and understand the world around us. Green monkeys can yell to their companions, "Look out! There's a lion." But a modern human can tell a friend that this morning, in a nearby bend in the river, she saw a pride of lions stalking a herd of bison. And she can describe exactly where it is, or how to get there. With this information, the tribe members can discuss how to approach the river, drive the lions away, and make the bison their own. But the truly unique function of human language is not so much the ability to convey information about neighbors or lions as it is the ability to convey information about things that don't exist. Only Homo sapiens was able to express things he had never seen, touched, or heard, and to do so in a manner that made sense. After the cognitive revolution, legends, myths, gods, and religions were born. Both humans and many animals were able to shout, "Look out! There's a lion!" But after the cognitive revolution, Homo sapiens was able to say, "The lion is the guardian god of our tribe." Discussing imaginary things is the most unique feature of Homo sapiens language. Most people would agree that only Homo sapiens can talk about things that don't really exist and believe in things that are not yet possible. If you tell a monkey that if he gives you his bananas now, when he dies he will go to monkey heaven and have more bananas than he can eat, he won't let go. But what does it matter? The point of fiction is not only that humans can imagine, but more importantly, we can imagine together and weave all kinds of fictional stories that we can share together. Whether it's the Bible's creation story, the Australian Aborigines' dreaming age, or even the so-called nation of today, it's also a kind of imagination. Such fictional stories have given Homo sapiens an unprecedented ability to gather large numbers of people and work together flexibly. Although a group of ants or a nest of bees can also cooperate, the way of cooperation is rigid and limited to close relatives. Wolves and chimpanzees are much more flexible than ants, but they can only cooperate with a few other familiar individuals. Homo sapiens, on the other hand, is not only flexible, but can also cooperate with numerous strangers. Because of this, Homo sapiens are able to rule the world. In a chimpanzee society, for example, a group usually consists of 20 to 50 chimpanzees. As the number of chimpanzees grows, the social order of the community is shaken, and eventually the community splits, with some members leaving to form a new group and find another home. Only on rare occasions have zoologists observed groups of more than 100 chimpanzees. Not only is there little cooperation between groups, but they often fight to the death over territory and food. Researchers have documented that there can be long periods of confrontation between groups, and even a case of genocide where one group of chimps systematically killed nearly all of a neighboring group of chimps. Similar patterns probably dominated the social life of early human species, including the ancient Homo sapiens. Like chimpanzees, humans have social instincts that allowed our ancestors to form friendships and hierarchies, and to hunt or fight together. However, unlike chimpanzees, human social instincts only apply to small, relatively intimate groups. When the group gets too big, the social order breaks down and the group splits. Even if there is a valley so rich that it can support 500 ancient Homo sapiens, there is no way they can live peacefully with so many people they don't know well enough. How could they decide who would be leader, where they would hunt, and who would mate with whom? It was probably through the power of collective imagination. We Homo sapiens were not the smartest or the strongest species at that time, but now we dominate the earth because of the so-called cognitive revolution. What makes Homo sapiens different from other species is not the size of the brain or the strength of the body, but the reason why Homo sapiens is the only species of human beings nowadays is that we know how to imagine the things that don't happen, the creatures that don't exist, and so on. Just like today's religions, countries, power, money, etc., none of them exist in the first place, but we constructed them with our imagination, and how important is that? When humans have the ability to imagine, we can build trusting relationships with people we don't know, we can work with people in different places because they share the same values, Christians from two worlds can fight together in a holy war, and money is a universal value under capitalism. We have the ability to create something out of nothing, because when a group of people get together and choose to believe, they can create common values that cross language, national and cultural barriers. The imagination of the human brain allows us to break free of genetic limitations, and when individuals share the same imagination, we can develop political, religious, economic, and other fictions. These fictions are created out of the air. There are no gods in nature, but when humans say there is a god of rain, there is a god of rain, and when they say there is a god of thunder, there is a god of thunder. Money has no value, but the mutual trust of human beings makes the shells that can be found on the sea a medium of exchange. Nature doesn't tell us who the leader is, but when all the people are fearful of and obedient to a certain person, that person becomes the supreme leader. Harari uses the term fiction rather than construct because he believes that all fictions are created out of thin air by the imagination of human beings and are ultimately untenable. In other words, no matter whether it is capitalism, socialism, nationalism, Christianity, or Islam, all ideas and political systems are equally good and ineffective. The word construct has no such meaning. It means that we can still make a better choice between different constructs. The preamble to the Declaration of Independence states, "We hold the following truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that they have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Harari shows quite bluntly that this is all an illusion. First of all, everything evolved, there is no creator, and nothing in nature is equal. Classical thought was largely based on the idea of superiority and inferiority, and it wasn't until the advent of Christianity that Westerners began to think that all men were equal before God. While the Enlightenment philosophers challenged the authority of God, they did not abandon the idea of equality of all men, they merely removed the theological argument and emphasized the equality of all men with a philosophical argument. Harari, however, pointed out that the creatures of nature have no special rights, and that human rights, in a word, are given to mankind by mankind itself. In other words, Harari has completely overturned the language of our political life. If all political values are false, then what is political life? How are people to be governed? How to teach children? As early as the Republic, Plato proposed the term noble lie, which suggests that any polity must be based on a lie of some kind, and that no political activity can be separated from a lie. In contrast, an open society must be tolerant of dissent and open to any reasonable criticism, so as to avoid totalitarianism and autocracy. However, Plato was not advocating that those in power must lie to the people and practice a policy of fooling them. Like Harari, Plato exposes the emptiness that lies beneath the foundations of all political ideas. However, unlike Harari, Plato believed that an empty political foundation would not allow political affairs to run smoothly, so there must be a plug to hold together the group consciousness that would naturally drain away, and this plug is the so-called noble lie. In Plato's terms, freedom and equality are the noble lie of democracy. These two principles are not without flaws. Inappropriate freedom may lead to disorder, excessive equality may make it impossible to distinguish the hard-working from the lazy, and democratic voting may allow us to elect leaders who care only about their own interests. If we believe in freedom and equality, we are no different from those who believe in leadership in a totalitarian society. If we do not believe in freedom and equality, we can watch democracy being corrupted and replaced by a totalitarian system. So how are we going to get out of this dilemma? From Plato's point of view, the reason why democratic values are lies is that human intelligence is so limited that it is impossible to prove that democracy is the truth in a simple and clear way. The reason why lies are noble is that human beings, faced with the abyss beneath their feet, have to struggle to construct a necessary foothold for themselves. All footholds are constructed by human imagination. Fiction is false, there is no natural foundation, it is human's imagination. However, the construction is more emphasized on rationality and feasibility than fiction. From Kant's point of view, human reason cannot reach the ultimate truth, and the law of nature does not tell human beings what kind of life they should lead. In the absence of truth and natural law, we are forced to use our own reason to legislate ourselves. It is important to note that Kant does not think that only human beings can construct an effective body of values. As long as there is a finite rational being, all of them can participate in the process of constructing legislation, except that at present, only Homo sapiens possesses finite rationality. If we meet aliens who also have rationality, or if another species evolves rationality, Kant believes that they can legislate together, and that they will not be denied rights just because they are not Homo sapiens. Kant's theory allows us to dehumanize political thought to a certain extent. Harari concludes by suggesting that due to advances in data science, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology, human thought and behavior in the future will be beyond the comprehension of Homo sapiens, and our philosophies will be far beyond our comprehension, just as we would not expect Neanderthals 30,000 years ago to comprehend the ideas of the 21st century. Instead of a great leap forward in philosophy, the great scientific breakthroughs of mankind have accentuated the dilemma of philosophy. Philosophers are still asking what is right, what is good and evil, and what is right and wrong. Without an unbreakable answer to these big questions, even Homo sapiens and above would encounter the same bottleneck. This book can tell the reader in a very organized way how mankind has come to this point. Capitalism and political liberalism alone are not convincing, there must be some degree of religious and philosophical foundation for the smooth functioning of the state and the market. From a purely theoretical point of view, Any system of thought is fundamentally flawed, but as long as it is useful in practice, theoretical flaws can be turned on or off. It can also be said that human beings are human beings precisely because they have to cut their way through an imperfect world. When we believe in something, it gives us the power to go on living. If we don't believe in anything, we are stuck in the same place. One of the most interesting things about this book is how difficult it is to establish a regime. How do you rally people in a time when you can't believe in the myths of nation building? Why defend democracy if you doubt its value? We have to go beyond Harari to get satisfactory answers. But to get beyond Harari, we need to read Harari.